I think initially there's a lot of just experimentation. You just kind of throw a lot of stuff at the wall, look at the data, and then try to move from there. So I think initially you have to go into it with open mind. We try to benchmark a bunch of stuff. We try to see, oh, this is right, this is wrong. But I think everybody's reality is a little bit different. What a conversion number or a CAC or a CPM looks like for every category and every product is slightly different. So it's very difficult to kind of say what is the benchmark. But I think a good benchmark to hold yourself at is CAC to LTV. If I had to go back and change three things, I had three things I would do differently if I started. I would say the first thing is that I would invest into tech sooner, invest into in-house tech team slightly sooner, right? I think it's very easy to outsource that and it's very convenient and not having to manage the team and not having to hire multiple people. You look at that as a big positive, but now looking back, I think that would have been a very high ROI investment. I think the second thing is very much from a data point of view. Create your data infrastructure in as strong of a way as possible from day one, right? I think on D2C, in order to compete, you have to have very data-centric decision making. So you need to have very clear understanding of what your funnel looks like, very clear understanding of long-term LTV, very clear understanding of CAC by consumer segment, etc., for you to be able to make the right decisions as to how to grow. When we initially set up the website, that was definitely something we thought about, but pace was more important than anything else. So I think I would have taken my time a little bit more, set up my data infrastructure a little bit better, maybe gotten an expert on board sooner to help us set that up. I would say the third thing, which is a big learning, is that worry more about LTV, worry more about retention than about stuff like ROAS and CAC, right? At the end of the day, if you're acquiring a customer, it's very expensive to acquire a customer, right? If your LTV supports that, that's totally fine. So LTV is a long-term moving target. So LTV is something it takes you a year to actually really figure out. So don't be scared. If you have confidence in your product, invest into acquisition. Eventually, acquisition is going to become a small part of your spend on a website. This is something which we didn't understand early on. So earlier, it's like 90% of a sale is coming through acquisition. And eventually that number goes down to 70, 40, 30. So what you're spending to acquire a customer is no longer that relevant, right? Because when they're coming back second, third, fourth, fifth time, you're using your CRM and your internal technology to get them back, right? So I think someone had told me, be more fearless about acquisition. I think we could have grown a little bit faster. It sounds very basic, but the thing that's been most effective for us is just getting feedback from other people who work for them. Like, I think Fireside has a great network. So anytime you kind of want to work with a vendor, there's somebody in the portfolio who has worked with them. And if not within the Fireside network, I'm sure you'll be able to find some connection. So take that extra effort, especially for important partners, to get references. I would say also try to measure success for what you expect from a partner and what success looks like, and make sure that you communicate that very effectively to your partner. I feel very often relationships fail simply because your expectations and what your partner thinks they need to deliver don't match. For example, a logistics partner. If you have a strong point of view around not only what to expect next week, but your long-term vision of what delivery timelines look like, right? With a manufacturing partner, have a detailed conversation about quality expectations, consumer expectations. One chat I always have with every new manufacturer is, okay, you might have worked with 100 people, but we live in a business where we get feedback in 10 seconds. And I can tell you which batch is great and which batch isn't. So we'll follow all our QC metrics, but you're working with someone whose every sale is reviewed, right? And I can track retention on every single thing. So once you talk them through that, they also become a lot more conscious and aware, So I think setting expectations is also very important. I think there are different ways to reach the same goal. I know companies who have been very efficient and very cost conscious and have really negotiated on a lot of these things very deeply. And honestly, coming from a traditional business, my initial response was always that. I worked for many years in traditional business. So my initial response was always like, okay, we need to get the best rate, right? But very quickly started to realize that these things don't really move the needle. When the time is right, then you can always negotiate that much better. So I think pace and quality and delivery timelines and expectations are more important in an early stage company than cost. And I think eventually then you need to start fixing your costs anyway as you start growing. So I think that should become more of a second order priority, especially for early stage business. In the early days, we were looking more for attitude than skill set. What we realized is that hiring someone with a great attitude and perfect skill set with experience was just too expensive. Like at early stage is not going to pay like 60, 70, 80 lakhs, 1 crore salaries. So what are the options you have? You have young, energetic people who have the same wavelength as you, but limited experience, limited knowledge. So that leads you down a path where you need to train them. But once they are up and running, the output is very, very good. However, I'll say if you have the money in the bank, and there's startups now that raise $10 million in seed. So if that's the case, hire. I think hiring good people will always pay for itself. I would say if you can afford to hire great people early, go for it. The way we did it was me and my co-founder took the senior leadership mantle for most verticals, and we got smart people who were energetic, who were very good executors, most importantly, but also applied their mind. So it's not that they're just blindly executing. And to create an atmosphere like that, you need to enable them as well. I think one thing a lot of people tend to forget is like you always kind of think that you're the smartest person in the room. But no matter how smart you are, if you're spending 10% of your time on something and somebody's spending 100% of their time on that, they will have a lot of good input. So I think giving a chance for even young people to speak and share their points of view is very important. So that's how we started. But there's another thought process. When we got great people in the organization, they really helped catapult the organization and catapult growth in a way we never thought. There is an argument to be made for hiring those people earlier and bringing the expertise earlier. I think most startups can't do that, honestly. If you can, I would say go for it. Yeah. The major thing is that we have our own direct connect with the customers. We're not dependent on anyone else. We can study consumer behavior, get insights, apply that to marketing, product development, and then finally, just not having dependence on Amazon. Amazon can just change the algorithm tomorrow. Even Facebook can change the algorithm tomorrow, and acquisition can become super difficult, like we're seeing in the US now. But with a D2C platform, you have your own database. If you can create a database of 1 million, 2 million customers, then you have that certainty of business, which is fantastic. But having said that, I'll say this. A lot of people talk about how fantastic D2C is and what the benefits are, but very few people are actually able to use those benefits strategically. So I think very important to also be very clear what you want to get out of it and then focus on doing that well, as opposed to trying to do 50 things. If your first priority is that I want to understand my consumer really well, then make sure your data infrastructure is set up in a way that you can do that. If your first priority is that I want to build a huge database, right? Then make sure you're doing things to acquire consumer data and cookies in a way which can be scalable. So I think there's a lot of excitement around D2C, but very rarely do I see people implementing and executing very, very well to get those outcomes right. Honestly, I think being very dependent on Facebook or Google in the long run can be very dangerous. I think you definitely need them to grow quickly and to scale aggressively. But in the long term, you need to own the customer, own a database. Acquisition through them can't be a long-term revenue kind of generator for you. That connects very well to having your data infrastructure sorted because you can't do one without the other. You need to be careful about that CAC to LTV kind of ratio. It's very easy to scale quickly in D2C, burn a lot of money. But if your quality of the consumer you're acquiring is not good, then it's all just money down the drain. So this entire CRM piece, this entire retention piece only works if you're acquiring the right customer. If you're just, for example, giving huge discounts and just getting that opportunistic customer, they'll never come back. So that acquisition cost is just a waste. So being tactical, being very sharp and onboarding good quality customers from the right places, I think that is what leads to a long-term healthy business. I'm sure there are people out there that have built their businesses without marketplaces, but I just feel that it inconveniences the customer to some extent. So I think it's very important to have a direct consumer touch point through your D2C platform, but consumer will buy where they want to buy. If consumer wants to buy on Amazon, you can't take away their option. Consumers don't think about from a channel point of view that, oh, I'm a D2C customer, right? Consumer is a consumer. And that's why it's very important, even from an offline point of view. So it's very easy to lose consumers by not being available across channels. It's about consumer convenience at the end of the day, right? Like how convenient is it for them to access your product?